Hello, Jordan.
What's up, Michael? We got news.
Oh, we have news. So today, the day the release of this podcast, the day the podcast comes out, Tuesday, February 7th, as of Tuesday, February 7th, the Fitness Business Mentorship went on sale. We do 2 sales per year. This is one of them, and it won't be on sale very long. It's $300 off. By the time you hear another episode from us, we will have ended the sale. We don't know exactly when we're going to end it, sometime in the next few days. So if you go to the website, fitnessbusinessmentorship.com, and you see that it's still on sale for $300 off, the lowest price that we're going to offer the mentorship ever again, the price will never go below this amount. Sign up and join us.
Yeah, that's it. That's why this is the most important podcast that we've ever said. This is literally the lowest price the mentorship will ever be ever again. $300 off if you want to join. By the time our next podcast is published, you've missed out on the lowest price it will ever be. Obviously, the main purpose of this podcast is to help coaches and to help people for free. But also, obviously, it's our main lead to get people into the mentorship, to help to give you information, to help teach you about coaching, help teach you about business, help teach you about social media, help teach you about psychology, systems, all of that stuff. And when you learn that you can trust us, then ideally you join the mentorship, right? So this is the last time that it will be this price ever in the history of the world. So if you would like to join the mentorship, if you want to build an online fitness business, if you want to improve your online fitness business, if you've been wondering, hey, you know what, maybe I should join, maybe I shouldn't. If money's tight, or if you want to take advantage of a deal, now's the time. If you don't care about a deal, fine, you can sign up whenever you want. But this is the lowest price it will ever be, and that's it. We would love to have you in there. So the link to join is in the show notes. But just remember, by the time our next podcast comes out next week, it will already be too late to join.
Yeah, and just to clarify, and then we're going to dive into things. We're not big sales guys. We don't pitch too hard. I don't even really know how to pitch, to be honest, but I'm really feeling it in this moment. So I'm gonna continue to ride with this flow, actually, because I think it's fun and entertaining. When coaches say I'm accepting 2 clients, or when they have a sales tactic like it closes at 11:59 p.m. tonight, and then no one can join at this price except then the next day and the day after that and the day after that and the day after that. They don't change the price and you can continue to join. That isn't how this works. If you miss this sale and you email us at info@fitnessbusinessmentorship.com and you say, hey, I'm so sorry I missed the sale, can I still get in, expecting that you will, because that's what basically everyone does. No. The end of the sale is the end of the sale. We've been building anticipation since January, so we gave you an adequate heads up. If you want to join now. And like Jordan said, if you want to take advantage of a deal, let's go. If not, keep listening to the pods. We're going to keep BSing around and trying to add some value to you where we can. Weekly uploads forever.
Yeah, if your business is crushing and you're rich as fuck and you're like, I don't need a deal, then fine. Then you don't take advantage of the deal. Spend it, buy it when it's the most expensive. But if you're like, hey, money's a little tight right now, I want to take advantage of this $300 deal, then now's the time. So I would put this podcast on pause right now, join the mentorship, then come back and finish out this podcast because it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and if you do join the mentorship right now, sorry, what were you going to say, Mike?
If you sign up 2 clients, you're break even. If you sign up 2 clients in your first year, you're break even. If you sign up, the people who do the best in the mentorship have been in it for 2 to 3 years now at this point. But if you're in the mentorship for 2 years and it helps you add 3 online coaching clients, you've broke even over 2 years. It's a tax write-off for your business. It's kind of a no-brainer.
There are a couple of things I really want to clarify. Right when you join, you're going to see there are a lot of courses, and these are long courses, several hour courses, everything from how to program nutrition for your clients to there's a huge how to grow your Instagram manual. There's a systems and assessments course. There's every course you get, client psychology, behavior course, all of that. We recommend you could start in any order you want, but watch one, maybe two courses per month at most. They're long, they're in-depth. You should not be trying to watch them all at once. So watch one, take notes on it, go bit by bit at a time. The other thing you'll notice is we have live Q&As twice a month in the mentorship. And someone just asked me the other day, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about joining, but I live on the other side of the world and I don't know if I'll be able to make the live Q&As. Number one, they're all recorded, right? So you don't have to worry about being there live. Number two is everyone in the mentorship submits their questions beforehand. So even if you can't show up live, your question will be answered and you can always watch the replay, which is what the vast majority of members do. There's a small close-knit group of people who show up basically every single Q&A, and like a lot of them are just absolutely dominating. But want to make that very clear that regardless of where you are, regardless of whether or not you can make the live Q&As, every question is answered, and all you have to do is just watch the replay. That's it. So link in the show notes if you want to join. Great. If you're rich as fuck, you don't want to join, just get a deal, then fine. That's no worries
whatsoever. You got
whatsoever.
A reaction from me when you said
I had to milk it again.
And now you're just... It's the thing that I never understood about comedy, and now you do it, but I also see like great comedians do it, which is when they hit something and they're like, oh, that worked. Then they like spend more time there. They like go in on the joke, deeper. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's, number one, there's no better feeling than making someone laugh. So it's just like, all right, I want to get that again. But also it's like, hey, if it worked, this happens in like social media all the time. Like we could use this as a transition into like making great content on social media. Like one of the things that I look for in comments is for people to say, I really needed to hear this. Mm-hmm. If people write that in a comment section, then I will make that same style post over and over and over again. And I know that's a message people need to hear. If someone laughs at a certain wording or phrasing, then I'll use that same wording or phrasing and try and go deeper in on it to really like get to the core of what I'm hitting there.
All right. Tell me so every single episode, we either lead this with, I have something in mind that we're going to talk about, or it's just an open conversation. But for the first time in the history of the How to Become a Personal Trainer podcast, Jordan has something in mind to lead the pod with.
Yeah, I told you before we started recording. I was like, all right,
I don't know what it is. So nice
Dude,
surprise.
So did you know who Mr. Beast is, the most popular YouTuber ever? Mr. Beast, like
yes,
millions and millions and millions of subscribers, and seems like a really nice, sweet dude. He does like some crazy shit on YouTube. Anyway, I just saw. Did you see that he cured 1,000 people of their blindness? Did you see this?
I saw the title of that video somewhere on the internet, but I didn't actually click it because I didn't.
So I didn't know this, but not all blindness, but a lot of different types of blindness are actually curable. It's just a lot of people don't have the money to be able to afford that cure, and it's a 10-minute surgery. It's insane. It's like, it's really crazy, but you can literally take like the cataract or whatever it is out of people's eye and they can see again. And it's just the only reason people aren't getting it is because it's expensive and they can't afford it. Mr. Beast paid for 1,000 people to get their blindness cured. 1,000 people. And I just saw that there are a fair number of people who are upset at him for doing this.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God. Like, apparently he made these reply tweets, and it was funny because he was like, people on Twitter, the rich should use their money for good and like to give to people. And then Mr. Beast is like, okay, I'll cure 1,000 people of their blindness and pay for it and all this stuff. And then people on Twitter are like, Mr. Beast is bad. It's like, and it just goes to show that no matter what you do, even if you literally cure 1,000 people of their blindness, there will still be people who have bad things to say about what you've done, which to me, it's just like, you might as well do what feels right in your heart and in your soul and in your gut and in your head, like is right, because you could literally cure people of blindness and they would still be mad at you. Like, What the fuck?
Yeah. Wild.
How crazy is that?
It's insane. Yeah. And do you know what their argument is?
So, I've heard a couple different ones, like some people being like, you're playing God, da-da-da. It's like, no, he's not playing God. It's not like he's walking around like saying like, I have godly powers. He's like, no, I will fund your surgery.
Yeah, that's a bad
he's
argument.
not playing God. There are some people who are like mad that they're saying like they cured them, because there are some people like blind people don't need to be cured type of a thing. It's like, all right, Jesus Christ. Like it's,
these people have nothing to do except sit on their phone and be angry.
yes. Yeah.
And it has to be an astoundingly low percentage of the population who would partake in this kind of behavior. The one criticism I saw, which I also find invalid, like the other two you just mentioned, was like an anti-capitalist, you're using these people to make content which makes you money argument, which I think is also silly, because even if that's the case, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
His business is benefiting. It's a business that does a lot of philanthropy, and the people are benefiting from the good work he's doing and the money he's spending on their surgeries. Like, insane.
And he's educating. Like, I had no idea that there were so many blindnesses that you could cure. That was cure. I had no idea. And it's only because of this video that I'm learning about it.
I'm going to reserve. I don't know about that either. And I'm actually skeptical of that. Like, I don't know what constitutes blindness. When I hear blind, I think you can't see anything. Like, maybe you can see some like light and dark, but you can't see anything. But I don't know if there's a legal blindness where it's like, okay, if you have bad cataracts and you can see, like, you have your peripheral vision, but like you can't see certain things in front of you. Maybe you can't get a driver's license because you can't pass the test. But like, if I'm looking at you, but you're standing, or if I'm looking here, but you're looking over here, then I can see. Like, I don't know what qualifies as blindness. I had my dad's oldest brother was blind for the entire time that I knew him. He had an accident when he was younger, and was like, he couldn't see anything, like kind of shadows, but nothing. And there was no amount of money could have cured that.
Yeah,
but
it's not curing all types of blindness. But from what I saw, for example, there was a guy who was like, he was a mechanic his whole life, and then he started to like get something that was clouding his vision, and they put on the screen, I don't know how they know this, but they put on the screen an example of what it would be like. And I remember when I was a kid, when I heard about blindness, I just thought all you saw was pitch black. That's just all you saw. But apparently that's not what all blindness is. Some blindness is just like, it's just insane blurry or clouded vision. And that's what this guy was saying. He's like, I'm a mechanic and I can't work anymore because I literally, like, it's a dangerous job and I can't see what I'm doing. I can't see what's right in front of me. Yeah. And literally the way the surgeon explained it is like, you literally just like vacuum out whatever is clouding that part of the eye, which sounds like a cataract, but obviously it's not curing all blindness. But I mean, holy shit, it's pretty amazing.
The other lesson I'll take from this, and you made a really good one, which is you can never please everyone as a content creator. Like, you could cure 1,000 people of their blindness and people are going to talk shit about you on Twitter. Having the quickest block thumb of all time, which is something that we've talked about, which is something you've done, which is something I've seen like other big names and not in the fitness space do for their own sanity and mental health, I would imagine, and just for the enjoyment of being able to continue creating content. But like, you don't owe anyone anything. And if someone is talking shit in a situation like that, like being so quick and so like, I know like the Gary, like, have empathy for this person. And there are multiple schools of thought on this. And I think if you're that mature and can deploy that, level of compassion, sure, feel bad and interact with your haters, etc. But, in my mind, in a world where I start making content super consistently, which might be a fictional world or a real world, who knows? My block finger is going to be so quick, and I cannot wait.
I'm curious to see if that plays out. Like,
let's just leave it at that. Let's just leave.
Yeah, well, all right, we'll leave it at that. But man, it's funny, like, the idea of saying you could cure 1,000 people of their blindness and people would still talk shit, it sounds like that's made up. It sounds like, that sounds like an outrageous example of something that would literally never happen and people laugh, haha, yeah, you're right. It's like, no, that literally is happening right now. This guy cured 1,000 people of their blindness with his own money. and people are throwing a hissy fit. It's unbelievable, which is like, honestly, I'm so glad that it's happening, because if it just makes me so much more adamant to post what I know is right, because I could literally cure 1,000 people of their blindness and there would still be people talking shit. So it is what it is.
Let alone the more basic levels of like, telling people to eat a reasonable number of calories, focus on mostly whole foods. You can have some meat, eat some fruits and vegetables. Like if you want to work in some ice cream and Snickers, go for it. Like Satan, like you're killing people.
Yeah. You're literally killing people and giving them eating disorders.
Oh, good. Great topic.
There you go.
You know what we should do?
Tell me.
Have a notepad in your phone where when you think of something like that, jot it down. And then when we come here, it might be fitness related, might be non-fitness related, business related, but then we have lists of things. Because this one, I feel like we struck gold on because it just hit you, sometime in the last few hours. And you thought to bring it up, but if it was like 4 days ago, we might not have discussed it.
Yeah. All right. I'll do that. Or I'll try and remember to do that.
I'll try and remember to do that too. I'll remind you too.
My notepad is, I always just text myself content ideas.
Perfect.
Yeah.
PT pod idea.
What else we got for today?
Oh man, we're dialed in. We've talked about this before, but I find it continually fascinating, which is the concept of structuring a life in which you have either hyper focus and spend the overwhelming majority of your time on a single thing, or a more balanced life. And we've also talked about at length and in depth, and probably a handful of episodes, about how it probably makes the most sense to be very imbalanced for certain periods of your life. If you want high achievement in business, for example, for a certain number of years. But that doesn't mean that you need to behave like that forever. That doesn't mean that, you need to work 90 hours a week and, sacrifice your health and your body and your sleep and whatever else. I don't really have a question here other than I just find the subject very fascinating. Like why some people go hyper focus narrow on one thing for 60, 70 years and why some people go with a more, maybe like you spend time with your family, you spend time with friends, you spend time with a hobby, you spend time on your health, you spend time with work. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, right? It's probably, it is different for everybody, but it's endlessly fascinating to me kind of how people make that decision, if they even do consciously, and what produces better life experience or richness or fullness for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I'm going to sort of riff off the top of my head, and maybe I'll eat these words later.
Riff.
I feel like the people who go for the hardcore, spending 16 hours a day on one thing, it starts off because they found passion in it. I don't, not all of them, but I don't think most of them are doing it from the beginning thinking like, I'm deliberately going to spend all my time on this just to build something huge. I think it's usually in their mind, I just love doing this. Like, I love doing this. This is my favorite thing to do. I love it. And if it ends up building something else, great. But I remember when I first started, really becoming a coach and getting into the industry, my mom would say, why don't you read more fiction books, or why don't you watch a movie, or what? And I would literally be like, I just don't want to. Like, I find so much enjoyment studying, reading these books, reading these websites, reading these research papers, making my I love it. And there was literally nothing I would rather be doing than that. The idea of going out and partying or going on dates, or it wasn't that I felt like I was holding myself back. It was like, this is literally the only thing I want to do right now. And that's what brought me so much happiness. Whereas the idea of balance, it made me unhappy. right? So I was actually happier because I was passionate about that one thing, and that's what I was doing. That's what I really wanted to focus on. I think a lot of the people they're just better at being more balanced and having more balance in life and giving more of themselves in so many different situations. I think often they either don't have one thing they're super passionate about, or the one thing they're super passionate about is balance. Right? Like the idea of balance is their passion. Like they love being able a little bit here, a little bit there, having some downtime here, being with this. Like that balance is their passion, or they haven't found a passion yet. And so like as a result, they end up, being in so many places at once and never really going all in on one thing. So I that's what I would imagine is going on, where it's like when you focus on one thing, it starts off as something that you just love and you're super passionate about. Whereas the other people, they either haven't found it yet or their passion is being balanced.
I think you make a great point about the initial obsession coming from passion rather than like, forcing yourself to do something you're not into. Would you say that right now your passion is balance then?
That's a great question.
Because you're now very balanced. I wonder if balance comes from having multiple passions.
I was literally just about to,
that are somewhat equal. I don't even know if we need to call them equal, but rather than like a single 22-year-old male whose number one focus is picking up a weight off the ground that's as heavy as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now having someone else whose passion is like being a good husband, raising his daughter, like, competing in a martial art, training himself, helping people through his business. Like all of these things are passions, and with many important passions, then you can't spend 100 hours a week on one of them because these other things that you really care about would then suffer.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think I have more passions now. And I've also gotten better at in my head understanding this might be a passion, but I know I'm not going to be the best at it, and that's okay. So, for example, like
that's so important.
Jiu-jitsu is a passion of mine, but I know for a fact I'm never going to be the best in jiu-jitsu. So I'm okay missing jiu-jitsu in order to spend more time with my daughter, or I'm okay like not giving jiu-jitsu 100% of my everything in order to focus on a passion that I actually could be the best at, something that I care more about. Like I love jiu-jitsu and I talk about it all the time, but because I am very aware now that it's not ever going to be something that I'm the best at, or that I'm going to be that like, people are going to be looking up to me for. It's like, cool, where else can I focus on the passions that are more important to me that I actually could really excel at, like fatherhood, being a husband, something like that.
What's interesting is when that shift happens, not just for you when it happened, but like for anyone when it happens and why it happens. And if there's like any common factors that can lead us to predict when that happens, meaning like when you were 26 and you were going hard on Instagram, in your mind, you could have been the best in like some, in some specific way, right? Most followers, most helpful, biggest in like whatever. Now the amount of effort that you put into growing your audience, let's say, is much less. Like there's no intention on being the biggest and being the best, but it still is a passion occupied. Like you're still doing it consistently. You're doing a really good job at it, but you're not putting as much time and effort into it as you were when it was the singular focus and when you were trying to like, be at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many things about that, like so many reasons that that's happening, but it's the perfect example of now I don't put as much effort in the same way that being in a calorie deficit to lose weight sucks way more than maintaining your weight loss, right? Being in a calorie deficit sucks. It's not fun. It's
Love the analogy.
No matter how sustainable you make it, I still fucking hate being in a calorie deficit. Whereas being in maintenance is significantly more enjoyable, and I don't have to put that much effort into it or as much effort into it. Same thing with social media. Like, basically, I was in a calorie deficit, like, quote unquote. It's not real. Like, my business, like posting 3 times a day, going super hard.
Yep.
It sucked. It was really hard. And even though I was passionate about it, like, it still sucked. But like, I did it. And now that I did that for so many years, now I can sort of be in maintenance mode with it and same thing with strength training, right? Like, in order to build muscle
Let me jump in, because that's maybe my favorite analogy you've ever done. So it's clear when to go from calorie deficit to maintenance, right? There's there's a healthy range. Like, you don't want to take it too far because it's unsustainable. We could pinpoint a body fat percentage range in the 8 to 15% range when it's kind of, for a male, for you in the city, like, where it makes sense to switch to maintenance here. The range in business or other passions, but we're talking about business, social media growth, there's no like health parameters around it. Like, you could have stopped multiple years shorter, or you could have gone multiple years longer. Like,
yeah, it is. I think it's definitely more subjective. But there are subjective measures with like the calorie deficit and maintenance as well. Like, hunger is up, right? It's like, okay, well, how much? Well, that's subjective. I know through doing it many, many times when hunger is too much, or libido is down, or energy is down, or strength is down. Well, how much? What percentage? It's like it's through trial and error. I know, okay, my energy is down too much. My hunger is up too much. My libido is down too much. My strength is down too much. So I think as I built my business and built my social media, and I realized how much time it would take away from other things, I was able to be like, okay, so for example, I have my daughter now and my wife, and I can say, wow, I can just have this gut intuitive feeling knowing, I've spent too many hours down in my office today. I got to get upstairs. It's not like, hey, it has to be 4 to 6 hours. It's like, no, I just feel it. And it's purely based on what feels good to me, right? It's like, if I've gone too many hours without holding my daughter, it's, immediately I'm like, I feel regret and I'm not happy about it. And that might change as I have more kids, God willing, and all these other things, right? But like, it's very much a subjective feeling that you sort of have to go by to decide, is this worth it to keep putting more time in or not? But it's all subjective.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also, and we can move on from this then, but it's similar to being in a calorie deficit and maintenance. You might have actually already made this point and it just didn't register while you were saying it, but it's so much harder to be in a calorie deficit than it is at maintenance, meaning when you do hyper focus on business for a number of years, it's way harder to grow than it is to maintain, which is a point we've made many times. But like, it's way easier to go from zero business, zero online coaching clients to a full roster. Very hard. Much, 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 much easier and much less of a time demand to then maintain that level or even continue to make slow and steady growth from that level.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing when I first started out that the first like $0 to $10,000 is the hardest. And then it's actually easier to go from the first 10,000 to 100,000 than it is to go from 0 to 10,000. And it's easier to go from that first 100,000 to 1 million than it is to go from 0 to 10,000. It's that initial first block is by far the hardest, because when you're starting from zero, you have zero. You have no systems. You have very little, if any, idea of what to expect or how to work with obstacles along the way. I think one of the biggest parts about going from that 0 to 10,000, just for this example, doesn't have to be 10,000, but you learn so much. You have bad clients that you've got to deal with. You learn about like what posts do well, what posts don't do well. You learn about like, okay, well, I suck at this, but I'm better at this. You learn so much during that initial 0 to 10,000. Then when you go from that 10,000 to 100,000, it seems like it will be more difficult, but you have so many systems in place now. You've learned so many tools under your belt now that it's like, okay, now you can actually maintain in a lot of areas that you're not even really thinking about. For example, at this point, for me, thinking of content is like maintenance. It's not hard for me to come up with content anymore because I've done so many thousands and thousands of posts that I know what my wheelhouse is. I know where my expertise lies. I know what people need to hear. I know what mediums they're going to hear it on. So all of these things that before making a piece of content might have taken days in order to make one really good piece of content now can take 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how I'm going to do it, just because it's more like a maintenance strategy. So it's very interesting how like the hardest part is that like 0 to 10,000. Once you get there, it's actually easier to go from 10,000 to 100,000, and easier to go to 100,000 to 1 million. It's just like, because you have everything in place. It still takes a lot of time and effort and energy, but the hardest part is the beginning.
Yeah. Are you talking per month, or are you talking total revenue?
Just in general. If it's
Curious.
for you, it's per day.
Get out. This is what we call gaslighting, and I actually mean it. Like, not like, oh, I'm being gaslit, like overused word in culture. I mean, that was actual gaslighting, what we all just saw there. That was great. That was fantastic. Should we jump into Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Someone said, I'm trying to get started as a coach coming from being a nurse. Do you have any advice?
I mean, there's so many things. There's so many ways to do it. I'll try and go real high level. This is just a distraction. This is not good timing for the De Niro, George. Real high level, I'm just going to list them off, and then we can dive deep on anything. Getting in-person coaching experience, whether that is paid or free, whether that's an internship or taking your pal Susie to the gym and helping her through her routine. But like, getting in-person coaching experience in some way is going to make you a better coach, and it's going to help you with online coaching. Making content. It can be educational. It can be documenting what you're doing right now. Probably a combination of both, but getting in the habit of consistently making content is going to help you build your online business. Probably focusing on 1 to 2 platforms at most to start. Like an Instagram website combo is probably the best 1, 2, maybe Facebook website, maybe Facebook, Instagram website, but right there. Self-education, it depends where you're at, right? If I hesitate to over-recommend this because there are certain personalities who will spend way too much time and think they need to read every single book in existence and delay 9 years before they even start their business. And so I don't want to encourage that, obviously. Like, start now, throw the spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, and adjust on the fly. But then there are other people who would really benefit from spending 50 to 100 hours reading everything Lyle McDonald, Martin Burkhan, Alan Aragon. Like, we recommended a few books in the last episode. There are a lot of people who would really benefit from spending a solid amount of time per week self-educating while also continuing to get in-person coaching experience and starting making content. And I realize this sounds like a lot of things and probably sounds really overwhelming. Yeah, that's what I got in this time frame.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about this so much. Someone else asked, I'm scrolling through the questions as you're talking, and someone else said, hey, I'm a new trainer. Do you have any tips? I just think if you're a new trainer, even if you're not a new trainer, but especially if you are a new trainer, the best thing you can do is become a great coach. Educate yourself and coach people. That's literally it. And I think a lot of people ask me a subsequent question being like, well, how do I get over imposter syndrome? In terms of like whether it's coaching people in person or usually now more related to posting content online. Imposter syndrome, I've noticed, happens when people try to take on the role of expert, right? They try and, hey, I'm an expert in this. But if you're a new coach, you're not an expert. And like, great, if you have a certification, you're still not an expert. Like, great, you got your level 1 cert, like you're still like, you're uneducated still. You're not an expert. I think an expert takes probably like 10 years of coaching a significant number, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people over 10 years. Like, I don't think you can be an expert because you got 3 certifications in a span of a year. Like, it's just, you're not a fucking expert yet. It's like, I forget what I was watching. There was a podcast that I was watching or listening to somewhat recently about how even people who get their degrees in a variety of subjects, like they're still woefully uneducated yet. Like they don't
Absolutely.
know anything for so many reasons. So if you want to avoid imposter syndrome, then be open about how you're not an expert yet. And don't try to take the role of expert, take the role of someone who's educating themselves and doing their best to learn, and you're relaying the things that you're learning through social media, and you're going to try and help people, but you've been wrong before in your life, you'll be wrong again in your life, and you're just here to try and relay the things that you're currently being made aware of, but that doesn't mean you're not wrong. As soon as you approach it from that perspective, number one, people are going to fucking love you. And number two is you'll reduce, if not eliminate, imposter syndrome because you're not trying to be someone you're not. If you are not an expert yet, if you're not fully confident in your abilities yet, then don't try and pretend that you are. Pretending is literally being an imposter. And that's why you have imposter syndrome, because you're fucking pretending to be someone you're not. Clips Nation.
Clips Nation.
Someone said, will machines at the gym have the same impact/results as free weights? I was thinking about answering this one on my Q&A on Instagram, but I was like, okay, this is a good one for us. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, you dive in first.
Sounds like you have a good idea of what you want to say.
I don't. You go first, bro.
You were gonna make one.
I was like, it's a good question. I just didn't know if it was a question for this pod, but based on that little kick under the table, this is a great question for the pod.
That wasn't a kick under the table. Someone just called my phone, which went through my computer. It might have cut out, but I don't think so. Riverside's pretty solid.
No, it didn't cut out. I just could tell that you weren't fully paying attention because like eyes shifted and like.
All right, Mister. I was just reading all the other questions while you were talking for the last 3 minutes and giving nonverbal cues back. And good. You go on Rogan and he's talking. You're just gonna be looking at your phone for 3 minutes. Yeah. Buddy.
All right. Machines, free weights.
Machines versus free weights.
Same impact results?
No, not the exact same, right? Like if you do a barbell back squat, which is a free weight, compared to a preacher curl machine, and if your goal is to get really good at barbell back squatting, and you go in the gym every day for a year and preacher curl.
Well, maybe like a better one would be like barbell back squat versus hack squat.
I'm making a general point.
Oh, okay.
You are going to improve at the skill of that which you focus on. So when it comes to exercise technique and when it comes to the skill of various movement patterns, like you're going to get better at what you do more of. If we're talking about like, can you build muscle on machines versus free weights equally? Yeah, pretty equally you can. Can you retain muscle while losing fat on machines versus free weights? Yeah, you absolutely can. I don't know. I'll let you dive into whatever you think are the biggest differences between the two.
You know, it's funny. My opinion on this has changed a lot over the years. I used to very much be in the camp of like, I never thought machines were bad, but I was like, machines are for bodybuilders and free weights are for athletes. That's like where my brain was. And the idea was that the reason free weights would be more for athletic and like quote unquote functional training purposes is because you need to learn how to stabilize it, and it's not on a fixed track, and so it's more relevant to overall life skills, which I still believe it is more relevant to overall life skills. But I also just think strength in general is really good, right? Like the strength you build from doing we'll call it a seated machine chest press or a seated machine overhead press will serve you if not exactly as well, like basically exactly as well as like a seated dumbbell overhead press in a real world situation in which you need to press something heavy over your head. I do. I think it's like strength is strength, and it's better to be strong than not strong. So I think the strength that you gain from a seated machine overhead press is going to be very similar and will help you more or less exactly the same in a real world situation. There are distinct and unique benefits to each one. I think that machines are generally better for if you want to isolate an individual muscle group, which lends itself really well to bodybuilding or bringing up weaknesses even in like more of an athletic performance circumstance where you maybe like it's very difficult for you to isolate a certain muscle to bring up a muscle that you need to, and machines can be very helpful. I think machines can be a great option for a brand new beginner to the gym who isn't sure proper technique and maybe he's a little bit nervous and would rather just, hey, this is on one track, it's hard to fuck this up. Like, cool, still get a great workout in and without worrying about, doing something dangerous, or it's definitely less dangerous. I do think free weights tend to be the better choice for everyday people who want to improve their health and fitness and function in life. I think they offer a significant amount more variety. They allow you to move through different patterns and ranges of motion and challenge yourself in different ways. Like, it's very hard to find a machine that's going to allow you to do like a lateral lunge. Like you're not going to be able to find that very easily. I think there are so many great benefits to barbells and kettlebells and dumbbells and free weights and all of that. But I really do think that for most things, it's the results will be more or less comparable. I really do. It's been funny because as I've gotten more and more into jiu-jitsu and strength training for jiu-jitsu, which is a very dynamic sport, like super dynamic. You need a lot of flexibility and there's tons of movement. I think most people would say you shouldn't use machines. You should just use free weights and kettlebells and all that. And I've actually found a tremendous amount of benefit in machines for certain aspects of jiu-jitsu. For example, I'll give one example. So a glute ham raise, I wouldn't call that a machine. I'd call that an apparatus that like it's more of like a free weight type of training. Whereas a seated leg curl is a machine, right? Like the leg curl is a machine, the glute ham raise is more free weight because your body is moving through motion. You have to control it throughout, and you're just sort of like it's more like a free weight as opposed to a machine, because the machine it's not on a fixed track. The glute ham raise, you're not on a fixed track. You're actually controlling your body throughout that movement. Anyway, most athletic coaches would say the glute ham raise would be better for an athlete than the seated leg curl. But I've actually found that the seated leg curl tends to be better for jiu-jitsu specifically because so much of jiu-jitsu requires long duration isometric holds in various positions. And it's easier to do that properly on a seated leg curl machine than it is on a glute ham raise. It's very difficult to get that long duration isometric hold on a glute ham raise because at the top of the movement, that's when you had the least amount of stress on your hamstrings, and that's where you need to hold it. Seated leg curl gives you that best positioning for longer duration isometric holds. So it very much depends on the individual, on their strengths, on their weaknesses, on the demands of their sport or their life. But I think that they can both be used relatively comparably.
I love it.
Comparably, maybe, is the right way to say it.
A lot of good stuff. I think comparably. I think that was right. Yeah. I guess, and then real quick, because we can rapid fire a few more questions. When are situations, like you listed a good example right there, but when do you program machines if you were programming for a client?
It's funny. I usually don't program machines, especially in like the inner circle.
Because you assume that not everyone has access. You don't know what they have access to.
That's a major reason. Yeah. If I'm programming for a big group, like in the inner circle membership, I'm trying to do what most people have access to. And also what I think people will enjoy more. And I've built the inner circle and my brand not around machine-based training. I've built it around free weights, which is what I love and what I personally prefer. Like, I actually prefer the glute ham raise over the seated leg curl. I enjoy the glute ham raise more, but for my specific sport, I think the seated hamstring curl is actually a better option. So I do that, but I prefer the glute ham raise. So for me, I know most people don't have access to every single piece of gym equipment, and there would be so many more questions like, well, my leg press does this and not like this. Like, all right, fuck it. I'm just going to, all right, barbell back squat. I don't care. It's a back squat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I if I was having a one-on-one client who said, hey, I have this specific machine in my gym and I'd really like to use it, awesome. Or like if at the beginning when I was working with one-on-one clients, I would say like, I had a whole like a menu of different pieces of equipment, and I was like, check off which pieces of equipment you have in your gym. So every time I wrote them their program, I could say, okay, cool, like they do have a dual cable machine, or they don't have a glute ham raise, whatever it is. So I would know what to program or what not to program.
By the way, if you're an online fitness coach, you should have this question in your assessment so that you know exactly what equipment your client has, and so that you can utilize everything you want to be utilizing. But continue.
Yep. It's funny. I would have that menu, and there would be some clients who'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to send you a video of my gym.
I get it all the time.
And they would like send me like a 12-minute video walking around their whole gym. And I'd be like, hey, just do me a favor, still fill this out. Because I don't want to have to watch a 12-minute video every single time I do their program. It's like, I still need you to fill this out. So I appreciate you walking me through the gym, but like fill this out as well.
Usually I only get those videos if someone has like a stacked home gym, or if it's like a 30-second video that just shows me everything in there, which is much more manageable and reasonable.
Yeah, I vividly remember this one video. This guy sent me like a 30-minute video walking through his entire gym. It was ridiculous. But anyway, definitely have that. And I would also ask, do you have any favorite and or least favorite exercises that you like to do? I would ask that as well, because if someone is like, hey, I love to do Bulgarian split squats, then I would program that more frequently. If they're like, oh my God, like the one exercise I absolutely hate above all else is like front squats. Cool, then I won't program front squats for you because they're not necessary. So those were also helpful in my client Q&As or client intake forms.
Yeah. I like machines for additional, like if someone has access, obviously. I like machines for additional variety of movement patterns and targeting muscle groups, right? They add more exercises, and there's both psychological benefit there, meaning more psychological stimulation and enjoyment from the variety for a lot of people, not for everyone. And a little bit of physiological benefit, right? Like one of the main reasons why it doesn't make sense to just have your to barbell bench press to start every upper body day for 3 years straight, but to work in some variety is for reduced risk of injury on that movement. And so, you can hit muscles with different movement patterns and different exercises using machines. You mentioned this briefly, but I like a lot of machines for complete beginners who might not be super comfortable with a lot of free weight movements, might not be comfortable with, might not have great balance, might not have the ability to do a lot of like single leg stuff, for example, and might be either more comfortable with machines, or there are just machines that it's hard to mess the move up on a particular machine. And so I'm going to program that machine early on, get technique videos, get them comfortable in the gym, get them progressing on weight with that machine before I switch them over to learning a slightly more difficult variation of a certain move.
Do you have any exercises that you either really like or really dislike that people might be surprised at? Like people are like, oh, I'm surprised he likes that, or I'm surprised he doesn't like that exercise. Do you have any of those?
Just not necessarily for myself, but just kind of in general overall.
Yeah, in general.
Surprised that I don't think people will be surprised by this because it's become a trend in the last few years, but it's become a trend in the last few years to be like, you don't need the big three to build muscle. and maybe even the last 5 years, I don't know, but not that long ago, people would say, oh, you want to grow your legs, but you're not squatting. Like, good luck. Those twigs are never going to grow.
That's what we grew up on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like the content that you and I grew up on.
Yeah. And for a client who doesn't care about big three strength, I wouldn't even say they're not moves I dislike, obviously, but I'm not married to like, this has to be, you have to conventional deadlift every phase of your program. Like, you don't want to get better at deadlifting. You don't really care. Like, you prefer single leg work. It feels better. Cool. I'm good with that. Surprised that I like or dislike. I don't think anyone would be surprised that I like training arms directly and programming it for those who also enjoy it.
And your neck. Love neck training.
Oh, neck. Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by anything because we're 109 episodes in here. I actually have some neck DOMs going. I'm feeling kind of.
You've been enjoying your lower body training more, which people might be surprised about.
Yeah. I mean, look, I like to joke around a solid amount about, who wants to train legs when you can do curls and right traps, neck. I remember Matt McLeod. Shout out Matt McLeod. I posted a picture many years ago. I don't even remember the exact details, but he was like, "Holy crap! Like, you actually have legs. I'd never seen your legs before." It's like I've never in the last decade trained upper body consistently, but not trained legs consistently over that time frame. Like, just feel better.
Are there any exercises that you've changed your mind about for better or worse over the years recently?
Kind of goes in cycles, right? Like,
okay,
maybe something that I don't know if this is recent, but something that I have done is programmed more moves that have a reduced risk of injury that target muscle groups effectively for certain people. For example,
that was the most vague.
I know. All right. I also don't want to. I don't think that, I'm almost positive this guy doesn't listen to the podcast. But I have a client who I'm never programming bent over rows for, and I'm always programming chest supported rows because. And I actually, in general, low back, and even like I tried to sneak in a bent over row on him, even though he told me never to do it because I was like, it's the concept of we don't avoid it because it's weak. We strengthen it because it's weak, and that's going to lead to less injury risk in the future. And there's other ways to strengthen the low back, obviously. In general, overhead pulling a little bit less of, for certain people, overhead pressing a little bit less of. I guess the answer to your original question is no. There are no exercises that people would be surprised that I.
This is so disappointing. I was really hoping that you're both going to love that question and give a great answer.
0 clips from Mike this episode. No, let's keep going. Throw some out.
That I personally, I'll give you one. There's been a lot of hate towards cable pull-throughs recently on social media, and I love cable pull-throughs. I think they're an amazing exercise.
Remember when we did them to like failure down at that LA Fitness in Florida?
Dude, it's one of my favorite things to do.
Like sets of 20 and 30? Yeah.
I love cable pull-throughs and that hypertrophy crowd, like every exercise needs to be 100% optimized for the most amount of growth possible is like, they're taking it to the extreme of being like, well, this exercise is bad because like it's not optimal for like glute growth. It's like, I think these people are going to have real fucking problems. And I know they are already, like with mobility issues and back issues and like hip issues. And it's like everything they're doing, their whole thesis is you should be able to mechanically load every muscle as much as humanly possible in every single movement in order to get the best growth response. And that might be true from that localized muscular perspective, but what about like joint health? What about like, there's so many other things going on here. And if your sole goal is to mechanically load the muscle as much as humanly possible on every single exercise, you're going to be struggling like powerlifters struggle with their joints and with their with pain and all of that. I'm a huge fan of cable pull throughs. The only reason I don't program them very much in a group setting is because most people royally fuck the technique up. It's a very you have to be very technically proficient in order to do it properly. And when you're working with general population, it can be difficult to set it up. And so I would do it with in-person clients, but I rarely program it for online.
We'll hit this right here. What are the most common technique mistakes on the cable pull through?
Well, there's a lot. The first one I would say is, I'll start off with one that is like understanding the right technique. When you're doing a cable pull through, you're not supposed to be at the top of it. You're not supposed to be standing straight up. You're actually supposed to be like leaning forward. Mm-hmm. It's like you should look like you're blowing in the wind, leaning straight forward. If you try and stand straight up, you're going to get pulled right back into the cable machine. You actually want to be leaning forward at like a 30, 35 degree angle so that you can get full hip extension.
When your hips are fully extended at the top of the move, so your body is straight at the top of it, but instead of being like this with the pull here, you're like here.
Leaning forward. Like yeah, exactly. Yep. Maybe even a 40, 45 degree angle. Exactly. Yep. But you're using the cable to pull against you so that you're not falling face forward, which can be, that's, I think, the hard part for people to learn. The other one of the other major technique issues is people pulling with their shoulders and bending their elbows. Your arms are supposed to be long. Your elbows are supposed to be completely straight and like your shoulders rounded forward, and your arms should be pulling in between your legs. If your elbows are bent, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. If your hands are moving forward during the movement, you're doing it wrong. You should not feel it in your shoulder at all. It should be all glute. Like that's it. Everything is glute. So like lightly holding on to the cable rope, let it pull your hands through your legs the whole time. And I'm a huge fan.
Those were literally the two that I wanted to say, but you hit the nail on the head. What do you say when people are like, it hurts my hands? You ever get that?
It's so funny because I haven't programmed it online in a long, long time. I bet I would get someone saying that now because it's more general pop, but like I programmed it more for like higher level lifters, whether they were power lifters or people who just loved lifting heavy, and they were clients who just would never complain. Mm-hmm. They were just like, whatever he tells me to do, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's uncomfortable on the hands. It's not like a fun, comfortable thing to do.
Life's not comfortable. Hey.
Yeah.
Send me a technique video. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. Is that the reply?
Yeah. I mean, if I had someone say that to me, if I programmed it now for someone and it was a gen pop person, then I would change the exercise. Like, cool, we'll just do a different exercise. Who knows? Maybe they're a hand model and they don't want their hands to get all torn up. I don't know. But back when I was programming it for a lot of people online, no one complained about it because I was working with and listen, like a lot of them were moms who were like 52 years old and had 3 kids, and they just loved lifting though. And so it was never an issue. So, but some people are just like, they don't want to deal with that uncomfortableness, which is fine. I'll change the exercise.
Sweet.
You know, another exercise. Oh, I know we're over an hour, but should we call it or keep
This
going?
Is the most important podcast ever. Keep rolling.
So I think people are going to be surprised to hear this because I'm openly pretty anti-BOSU ball. But what let
me jump in. Why is it called a BOSU ball? This was on my list a long time ago. I don't think we ever hit it. I've been confused my whole life because apparently the half moon, which isn't a ball because a ball is a sphere, right? Ball, sphere. The half moon thing, half moon is a BOSU ball. Yeah. What is that? That's not a ball. It's a crescent. It's a waxing, waning.
I sort of want to, why?
There's not going to be an answer. Like I see a Swiss ball. I see a ball in there. Maybe we have hit on this before because I feel like this conversation led to me. It led to me talking about the guy who was squatting on the Swiss ball.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, so originally, all right, well, here's the answer. This is it. Originally, the name BOSU was an acronym for both sides up. It meant that the BOSU balance trainer could be used on either side, the dome or the platform.
That's fine. Then it's a BOSU half moon. It's a BOSU
BOSU crescent.
semicircle. It's a
Yeah,
BOSU, like,
it's not a ball.
Geometry is not up for debate. Okay?
Agreed. It should be called the BOSU crescent. I think that'd be
Okay.
a more accurate name for it.
Thank you.
I'm not a big fan of it for lower body exercises specifically, right? Especially where you're standing on the flat side of it, right? Even the fucking company, BOSU Crescent, says do not stand on the flat side of the BOSU Crescent because it's dangerous. And I've told the story before how I was an expert witness in a court case where this trainer had his client on, or actually her client, it was a female trainer, had her client on the flat side of the BOSU Crescent, and she fell off and she like tore ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus, everything, like gone, boom. And it was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. You should not be standing on the flat side of the BOSU ball. But what a lot of people don't know is actually I really like the BOSU ball for upper body exercises. For example, doing push-ups on the flat side of the BOSU ball. Now, this is not something that I would give a beginner at all, but I actually used to do this a lot when I was working at Cressy Sports Performance, when I was interning there and like doing a lot of shoulder stability work. And Eric Cressy, one of the greatest strength coaches of all time, did a large part of his research around unstable surface training and understanding the benefits or the drawbacks depending on what you're training it for. And it's pretty clear that unstable surface training for the lower body, it can have benefits for some joint stability, especially for the ankles, but you have to weigh it against the danger of what you're doing it. So if you're standing on the BOSU ball, whether you're on the flat side or the crescent side, it's too dangerous to be doing that. And I know a lot of physical therapists actually do put their clients on the crescent side, but why don't you just have them stand on 1 foot on the ground, or like get an AirX pad, which is 1.5 or 2 inches off the ground? You get the exact same benefits without the dangers. Whereas with push-ups on the BOSU ball, actually, I'm a big fan of it for a higher level, more advanced trainee who wants to improve shoulder stability. It actually can be a very useful idea, or a very useful training tool. Again, I wouldn't give it to a Gen Pop client who was relatively new or was not really strong, but for a higher level Gen Pop client or for an advanced athlete, absolutely, I will do some upper body work on the BOSU Crescent.
Speaking of, what should a new coach do, or someone who wants to get into coaching? And we're talking about good free resources for education. Eric Cressy's website from the 2008 to 2012 range, all of those articles hold up. So
Dude,
going through those archives.
I think it's from like 2002.
Or even before. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy when he started making long form website articles. Him and Tony Gentilcore. Yeah.
Feel better for $5 or feel better for $10, which was an article about foam rollers, I think from 2001 on T Nation.
Yes, yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think it was 2010. Someone on a poker forum recommended that article to me because I was having upper back pain, and he was like, basically like do T-spine extensions over read this article and do this.
Wow. And that's how you and I got connected, because I interned there. I wrote a guest article for his website and you found me from his website, right? That's how we got connected?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't actually know. I found you online somewhere.
It must have been.
But was it a guest post? Or because yeah, maybe that was it, because I think I knew you interned there, and then I saw the article about strategy.
Posture.
Yeah, strategies for like low back pain or hip pain when you're sitting all day long, and it was like kneeling, half kneeling, like there were various. Was that? I thought that was on your website, but maybe I'm wrong.
That was on my website that you commented on, but I was like, well, how did you find my website? And I think it must have been because I posted a guest article on his website. And back then,
or you were maybe you were SEOing hard.
No, that article did terrible. That article did not do well.
Maybe not for strategies for low back pain when sitting at a desk for too long.
But remember back then when people would write guest articles and then they would say this article was written by so and so, and they'd like hyperlink their website.
Yeah,
that was a major way to grow your audience back then.
Absolutely.
Now it's like, no, it doesn't do anything.
No, but because everyone's attention span there's just so many fewer eyeballs there.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is interesting. There's also less creation there. There's probably something there to like being really consistent with article writing, not only for the SEO upside, but like if that's what you're consistently doing and having people who read you.
Dude, I remember one of the things I wanted to talk about, but we'll save it for the next podcast.
Or not.
Yeah, we'll save it because I got to get going. But ChatGPT will start the next we'll talk about it. Let's just talk about it on the next podcast. We'll start with that. But remember, by the time the next podcast comes out, it will be too late to get in on this sale, which if you're rich as fuck, that's fine. If you don't want to get in on the sale, it's great. But if you want to get in for the lowest cost to the mentorship, the online fitness business mentorship, now's the time. So link is in the show notes. Please do not email us once the sale's over. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I forgot. Nope, this is it. This is it. This is the only chance. $300 off. Join us in the mentorship right now. Link is in the show notes. We would love to have you.